IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Ryan, that's Ryan Roberts, y'all. My dude, Ryan Roberts. You can follow him at Rise and Draft. For those not watching, it's Rise N, like Nancy, Draft. Now you can follow him on Twitter and get all his content at A to Z Sports on there. And some of the stuff Ryan will post on Irish Breakdown's premium board at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Yet another reason to be on there, Ryan. And my dude, it is kind of wild. I can't believe it's Thursday already.
I
This
know.
week has really flown by, and we are 2 days away from yet another Notre Dame game, and that is what we're going to discuss today. Ryan, we're going to talk keys to victory. We're going to talk Notre Dame versus Northern Illinois. I'll be joined by Bill Bender later to preview the 4 big games of the weekend. Ryan, if we finish up here soon, if you want to kind of give some quick thoughts on those 4 games, we can do that as well. But, Ryan, it's another opportunity for Notre Dame to grow, and that is really what this weekend is all about. It's about getting better as a football team as you march on towards what your ultimate journey is.
Yeah, well, and I would say for fans, if you're not enjoying the ride so far after beating a top 25 team on the road in a big time environment, then go outside and sit in the sun for a little bit and enjoy time because you're a little bit grumpy on nowadays. But I mean, you're absolutely right, Brian. I literally wrote about it yesterday that I don't want to call it a tune-up game. I don't want to call it like a scrimmage, even though some people are going to quantify it that way. But this is a big test for Notre Dame in the simple fact that one improvement that we liked from Marcus Freeman year 1 to year 2 was that year 2 they buried the teams that they should bury, right? And that was great to see. They did not have the hiccups against the bad football teams. And Northern Illinois is not a bad football team by any stretch, but a team that obviously in a vacuum is not nearly as talented or nearly as good a team as you are. So after a big win, Kyle Field, Saturday night, primetime, college game day, all those things involved, there is a reality where some teams would not be laser focused the next week against a MAC team, where they would be just kind of going through the motions and talking. Everything's cute behind scenes and all that type of stuff. But this is a big test in the simple fact of Marcus Freeman, this staff, these players, are they all locked in to going in and not messing around with this Northern Illinois team to bury them early and then hopefully get in some of these young sophomores, freshmen, some of these young cats that we want to see so much. I really think that this is going to be about preparation this week, about the process. And if they're true to their process, I think that they shouldn't have too much of a problem on Saturday.
You talk about this Northern Illinois team, Ryan, and it basically comes down to this, right? That people are going to see MAC, and they're just going to say, well, MAC team, and they're not all the same, number one. MAC, there are varying levels to the MAC. Just looking at Northern Illinois in that league, I think this has a chance to be one of the 2 to 3 best teams in the MAC this year. I really like this Northern Illinois team. They're not as athletic as Toledo was a couple years ago. That Toledo team in 2021 had legit athletes at a couple positions, and quarterback being one of them. Yeah. This is a different type of dangerous MAC team. Dangerous in that they can make this game more competitive than it should be. Not dangerous as in I'm concerned about Notre Dame losing this game. Because they are incredibly experienced and they actually have good skill, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And they're running a system that is new to them, that I'm watching it again last night, Ryan, and I'm like, first play of the game, you line up in a diamond formation, essentially, right, with your stud running back in an offset, almost like he's a fullback. You run a motion away, you bring him on a sweep, and that's just kind of what they do. And you've got one set of game film on it. I promise you there's some stuff that they didn't show against Western Illinois that they're going to want to show against Notre Dame.
Don't insult the leathernecks like that. Don't insult the leathernecks.
But this is a team that is very well coached. I really like the job that Thomas Hammock is doing. And if he can find a way to get even more athletes there to Northern Illinois, they got a shot to be a really good MAC team because they are well coached. But as you said, this is a game that Notre Dame, if they are locked in, if they're the team that they need to be, if they play the way they're capable of, this is not an overly competitive game. If they go back to being the not focused team that they were at times in 2022, then this is a game that may be similar to the UNLV game, maybe even a little bit tighter where, your offense doesn't really wake up till the second half and you don't really pull that game away until late. And then you kind of let them come. It was a sloppy game. You don't want it to be like that. But if Notre Dame comes out and they're focused, this is a game that they should roll. And we're going to find out what that Notre Dame team does this weekend when they do take on Northern Illinois.
And a quick note is that I had spoken to somebody that knows the program very well. Who's Ryan talking about? I'm never going to tell you guys, so stop speculating in the chat. But they had said that they think that Notre Dame might be playing the two best teams in the MAC potentially this year with Northern Illinois and then Miami, Ohio, right? So I think that it's a test, and I think it's a pretty strong test on one side of the ball specifically. But yes, in a vacuum, if Notre Dame plays their game, they are focused. They're ready to roll. Their week has been good. They've been processing everything well. I think that this game should not be overly competitive by midway through the third quarter. I think that's when it should be kind of off the rails a little bit.
I don't know who said that, but I tend to agree with him. I think it's
Yep.
Miami, Northern Illinois, and Toledo. I think are the three best teams in that league, in my opinion. And so we'll see how it plays out. But, again, this is not Central Michigan from last year. This is not Ball State. This is not Bowling Green from 19. This isn't Akron from this isn't Kent
Akron
State.
from now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is a team that you've got to be on. You've got to at least bring your B game to win convincingly. If you bring anything less in the B game, then this could be a lot uglier than you need to. I don't know that there's a scenario in which I see Notre Dame losing this game. I don't think that Northern Illinois has the firepower to do that, but it is a game where you could kind of slug your way through it and lose some of that momentum that you had after last week's game. Because that's really a big thing for me, Ryan, as you prep for this is, can you build on the momentum from last week? And can you get that kind of win that you need to get where you did play in the Texas Heat? You did have, you played a lot of dudes. They played about 20 guys on both sides of the ball yesterday, which was nuts. They played 22 guys that have freshman or sophomore eligibility on offense and defense. Mm-hmm. But you still had Howard Cross played 50 snaps. Jack Kaiser played over 60 snaps. You still played a lot of snaps in the Texas Heat. It'd be really nice to come back home for a week and get 30 snaps for Jack Kaiser. 20 snaps for Howard Cross and Riley Mills, and really put this thing away. That would be very important, in my opinion, for Notre Dame.
Well, it would be. I'll just say this, Brian. It's Ohio State's lucky they didn't see Northern Illinois last week. I'm just saying, right? I'm just saying in the chat a little bit there, but I believe that this is the game because you have these games every single year where they are expected to be a lopsided blowout victory, where hopefully you do get to see some of those young guys, right? Like let's get a Bodie Cahoon in the game. Let's get a Cole Mullins in the game. Let's get Carson Hobbs some reps at the nickel or outside corner, wherever the heck you want to end up playing him. Like I want to see some of these young cats play. I want to see Kenny Minchie or CJ Carr at quarterback. I want to see Keedron Young get a couple totes and E.S. Williams be involved. This is a game where if Notre Dame takes care of business, this is where valuable reps are earned for the young players that are going to be a part of the future of your Notre Dame program as well. So I would very much hope that Notre Dame takes care of business this weekend. I sure hope.
You know what I don't want to see? A 21-14 halftime game like it was against Central Michigan last year.
Yeah.
That's what I don't want to see. I want to see this team have a little bit more early game discipline, and that's what we're going to get into when we get into our Keys to Victory, which is coming up next. As always, Ryan, because I love offense and I'm an offensive guy. So we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball today. I know you're a defensive guy, but we'll get to the defense here soon. We're going to talk about the Notre Dame offense and just big picture. It is important that Notre Dame get rolling a little bit on offense this week. And I talked about this in earlier shows, and I want to hear this from you a little bit. I actually think this game is a good test for Notre Dame's offense because you're going to have superior talent. And I know you were in the chat, so you heard the points that I was making, so I don't need to set it too much. But you have superior talent to Northern Illinois' defense, but this is a very veteran defense, with a lot of not just older players, but experienced players, guys that have played a lot of football for Northern. You have a defense that actually has some length to it, which you don't normally see at that level, and they're very well coached. And so you are going to have to earn the success, I would say maybe a little bit more than you did against Central Michigan last year, who you just kind of slopped your way through that one. It wasn't that Central played necessarily great. It's you had a lot of big mistakes. You had a 70-yard touchdown get called back by a holding, things like that you've got to eliminate. But I actually think this is going to be a good test for this offense. If they get rolling this week, it's because they played well, not just because they out-talented Northern Illinois.
Right. Well, I would say for this Northern Illinois defense, I think for the offensive line, like a guy like Roy Williams at defensive end who's 6'6", 251 pounds. I think that that's a pretty good test against your young tackles that you still have or inexperienced tackles that you have in Emil Wagner, Anthony Knapp. I don't think that this is just like an off game for them. Like if they don't play well against 97, that kid has enough athleticism and talent to be able to cause some pressure to Riley Leonard. I think more than anything, this is a game, though, that I look at because I listened to your breakdown and I was kind of surprised that Northern Illinois had as good at pass defense numbers because I don't know, man. I watched them and I'm just like, I didn't really see anybody in the secondary that I was blown away by at all.
It's when you go back and watch it last year, Ryan. Number one,
Yeah.
let's be real.
Mhm.
There was
Mhm.
not a lot of great passing teams in the MAC last year,
Sure.
right? That's why there's so many quote unquote great pass defenses in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Mhm.
But you know what I like about their defense, Ryan? They're just sound, right? I mean, they keep everything in front of them. They don't make mistakes. They don't give up the big plays on garbage plays where you turn a guy loose. You've got to earn it because and they're long, and I think that helps them overcome the lack of athleticism that they have in a league where you know what the MAC used to have, Ryan. The MAC used to have a lot of really athletic wideouts.
Yeah.
And you just don't see as much of that anymore, especially nowadays that when kids do start playing well, they jump to a Power 5 school. I
Sure.
think that helped them in that regard. And there weren't a lot of top-level quarterbacks in the MAC last season. But I just think they play sound football. That's
Mhm.
really what it comes down to. They play sound football. They don't have their corners come up. Like I'll be shocked if this is a week where the corners come up and play press man the way that a lot of teams do. If they do, that's going to be like, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. Let's throw the ball down the field. Because to
Right.
your point, like somebody asked me to compare this team to Marshall. And I said the big difference is this team is well coached like Marshall. This team has got decent ability in the trenches like Marshall. I think this
Mhm.
team has a better running back than Marshall. I like this quarterback. Limited sample size, a little bit of what I saw last year, but especially in this new offense. The
Yeah.
big difference is Marshall had legit athletes
Oh,
in
yeah.
their secondary, and I don't think Northern Illinois
And the
does, and
linebackers
that's the key.
too. The
Yeah.
linebackers too. I mean, they had the Bo Plan kid and then the Elias Neal kid. Like, I mean, they had some talent on that defense on the second and third levels. I mean, they literally had Stephon Gilmore's little brother, who was a good player for Marshall, and then they had the other corner that was actually better than Stephen Gilmore was, right? So, like, yeah, Marshall's defense was good. I remember talking that week, Brian. I know I predicted Notre Dame to still blow out Marshall, but I remember talking about them that week, and I'm like, guys, like that defense is pretty good, man. Like it's a good defense. I kind of feel similar about the Northern Illinois offense when we talk about them, but like
Mhm.
the defense for me, I I look at it and say, I know I have a very good idea that Notre Dame is going to be able to run the football against them. I would be shocked if they wouldn't be able to run the football at a high clip. Jeremiah, I'm sure that Jeremiah Love will break off a couple. I think Jadarian Price has an opportunity to break one or two. I think that Riley Leonard, if used in the run game, which I don't think that he will, and I hope that he
Hope
isn't,
not.
I think that he would tear that team up because I think they're pretty slow on the second level. Like I did not like the second level of this Northern Illinois defense. I want to see what they can do in the passing game because again, on paper, it looks like a decent passing game defense, and they have some players that have played a lot of football. But I was talking about this, and like I really want to see the offense get opened up this week because although it doesn't matter if you're an explosive passing attack against these teams, if you fail to open it up against the bigger schools, it doesn't really matter in a vacuum. But in order for them to start to open things up and gain trust that they can open it up against better competition, you need it to start somewhere, right? Like I need to see if Chris Mitchell can create a big play. I need to see if Jaden Greathouse can, bang eights for a big game kind of down the seam. I need to see if Eli Raridan can take the seam a little bit. I need to see if some of these other wide receivers, if Bo Collins can consistently be a vertical threat for them in some capacity. Like I really hope that Notre Dame comes out and tries to create some explosive plays in this passing game because that's what I most want to see, to be honest with you. I think that Notre Dame could just sit there and they could run like they did last week as far as like their game plan and being a little bit conservative in the passing game and just running the football. And they could probably win by 20 plus points doing that. But I really want to see if they can open things up because I think that that is the spot of this offense that I think has a lot of potential, but I still think is a very big unknown because we just saw them throw for under 160 yards last week. Let's see if they can open things up a little bit.
With that in mind, Ryan, let's dive into our keys to the game, and that's a lot of it's going to be centered around that. And so for me, it starts where I always start with keys to victory, Ryan, and it's because I'll continue to say it. I will stop having this as my number one key to success when Notre Dame proves to me that they can actually do this with some level of consistency, and that is start fast. They've got to come out and get off to a fast start, Ryan, because it's going to be harder to put this Northern Illinois team away if you slug your way through the first half, because they will try to run the football and control the clock and play field position, and they have very good special teams at Northern Illinois. And so I want to see this team come out and have a fast start, and not only practically speaking, but I think they need it, Ryan. I think the offense started to kind of feel its way a little bit in the fourth quarter of that game last week. You had the big play to Jaden Greathouse. You had the big throw to Bo Collins. You had the corner route on the snag concept to Cooper Flanagan for the 16-yard gain, which kind of sparked another drive. You started to see a little bit of it kind of coming alive in the fourth quarter of that game, late third quarter. They need to build on that and really come out and start fast in this game. Look, I understand why they were a little sloppy last week. You and I think you predicted them to have 20. We both, I think, had
28.
24 points. You had 28. I had 24.
28. Yep.
Right. So kind of in the wheelhouse. You had them scoring 4 times. I had them scoring 4 times. Right. Mm-hmm. They ended up scoring 5 times. Am I correct? Right. 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals. Right.
Yep.
Or correct. Right. Yes. So it kind of went how we thought, because A&M has a really good defense, and B, the reality is, Ryan, as I pointed out in the show, they started 9 players on offense with freshman or sophomore eligibility. They started in this game with Mitchell Evans not playing. They started 2 players on offense that started – 4 players on offense that started at the end of last season. That's it. Right. Mm-hmm. Now, there was other guys that played. Jaden Thomas obviously played, and Cooper Flanagan played last year, and Eli Raridan played last year. But as far as the starting lineup, you had a very young lineup. Your 2 quote-unquote veterans in the starting lineup are brand new to your system. Neither really did much in the spring. Bo did nothing in the spring. Riley did very little in the spring. So, yeah, you play that kind of defense, you're going to go off to a slow start. That's fine. I can excuse away the slow start against A&M. And not even excuse it away. It's understandable. That I'm not going to have as easy of a time explaining it away against if you can't start better against Northern Illinois. You do need to get Riley going a little bit. You do need to build some confidence. You do need to be willing to push the tempo a little bit. I understood playing a little bit slower last week, but this is the week you need to start becoming who you want to be moving forward, because the key in week 1, Ryan, we've talked about it how many times. I don't care how you do it. Just get a win, and then you've got these get-right games coming up. Well, this is a get-right game for the Notre Dame offense, and I think coming out fast is going to be huge for them to not only practically put Northern Illinois away early, but also to give this team some much-needed confidence. And I'll feel good about this offense if they do come out and start fast, because, as we said, this is a quality, veteran Northern Illinois defense.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, an offense is – if you are a run-centric or pass-centric offense, I really don't care as long as the other side is efficient and create plays when you need it to. That's been the problem with Notre Dame in several years, is that when they've had a great run game, their pass game isn't efficient, and they don't have the ability to create big plays in that regard. Notre Dame, I think, more than anything, needs to come out and they need to create efficient and explosive plays in this game. I mean, like, that's what I'm going to judge this game off of, because, again, if they ran the ball 60 times in this game and chose not to throw once, they'd probably still win. And they probably still win by a decent margin, because they are incredibly talented at running back and they have a dynamic athlete at quarterback. There's no doubt. I think Riley Leonard talked about this in his post game, where he had said, they asked about the Bo Collins play, and he had said that, like, he said something to the vein of, I needed to throw to him earlier in the game, but I didn't, right? And why didn't you? Because you didn't have trust at that point, right? Now you saw that Bo can make that play. So the next time, it's easier for you to trust that he's going to make that play. I think players showing that they can make those plays makes others comfortable around you, and that starts by having a strong start to the game. If Riley throws the ball up to Bo Collins on a back shoulder in early portion of this game for 20-something yards, and he makes the reception, we're rolling, boys. If the first handoff to Jeremiah Love goes for 15-plus yards and shows a little bit of explosiveness, you're rolling. If you give a short crosser to a Chris Mitchell or an outside vertical to Chris Mitchell and he creates a big play, you're rolling. Like, this trust starts to build, and when this team trusts itself offensively, I think it's going to be dangerous. But that is only going to happen if they have success. Once you taste success, that breeds more success. I need Notre Dame to show that they can do that this week.
And they've got to be put in position to you can't complete balls down the field. You can't complete the deep overs. You can't complete post routes and wheel routes and go routes if you don't call them. That's going to be the other thing. Now, again, this isn't a criticism. I understand why they did it. I get it. But you need to see it now. The things that we saw in fall camp, the things we saw in the spring, it's now time to see them in games because, you're going to need to start building that momentum. So that's obviously number one is starting fast. Number two, and this is kind of what we talked about before we got into specific keys, but it is a very important thing, is Notre Dame does need to get the pass game going early. Two reasons why. Number one, big picture, because as we said, like a lot of keys to victory in this game are not necessarily if you don't do this, you can't beat Northern Illinois. It's more about, yes, this is going to help you beat them, but this is also about building your team for future success when you do play tougher teams like Purdue next week. Purdue's not necessarily as sound as this Northern Illinois team, but they're a lot more talented than this Northern Illinois team at certain spots. And then, of course, in 3 weeks when Louisville comes to town, that's going to be a big time test, and you need to get your offense going. So the pass game's got to get going early. What does that mean? You've got to have some efficiency early, right? You've got to get those balls out, throw the ball on time. Riley's got to go through his progressions well. Did you see the play, the ball he threw to on the in cut to Chris Mitchell that he drove into the ground? Did you see the burst corner that Bo Collins had backside?
No.
So they ran a concept, and it was a 3x2 to the right and it was two guys to the left. And Mitchell ran an in cut. They basically ran a burst corner smash concept backside. So number one runs the burst corner, number two runs the slide. It was a 2-over-2 backside. To me, that's where the read's got to go. And Riley looked there for like a split second and then immediately went away from it. Bo has a one-on-one, so I like that anyway because he got up on the corner. And then he stuck his corner out. As soon as he stuck that inside foot, the corner falls down, and Bo's wide open. It would have been a touchdown. Like, I need to see Riley be more patient with the reads, and that comes down to partly trust. Hey, Bo's got a one-on-one. I'm going to stick with this for a second and get the ball out. That's part of that timing thing, that trust thing that they need to have. So efficiency early, getting the ball out. Let Riley get into a nice early rhythm, that being willing to take some shots down the field. The receivers got to make more plays. But at the end of the day, this is going to come down to the quarterback has got to get more comfortable with the system and comfortable with the players around him. That's going to be a huge part of this because there was stuff there against Texas A&M. One of the field goal drives, he's got Jeremiah Love on a one-on-one. You need to have a better ball. Jeremiah needs to run a little bit more to the corner, but that was not a good football. Make a couple of those throws, and all of a sudden this offense goes off just based on what they did last week. Forget what they're going to do matched up against Northern Illinois. There was stuff there last week. You've got to hit some of those early, Ryan, because if the pass game gets rolling early, Northern Illinois has no chance to stay in this football game because now they don't need to run 60 times to get to 250 yards. They may only need to do it 35 times because if they're forced to spread that defense out and now you're gashing them up the middle with your running backs and running some of your stuff with your running backs and they have to vacate the box a little bit because that's what happened to A&M last week. Right now, the difference is with last week, Ryan, Mike Denbrock had to force the vacate with the formations. This week, hopefully, you can do it with your normal stuff because you're having success in the perimeter. But obviously, getting that pass game going early is a huge part of what this offense needs to do in this game.
I just think you need to be more well-balanced leaving this football game, right? And obviously the balance comes from you just ran for almost 200 yards against a good Texas A&M defense. Now it's about, like, let's get the passing game up to par. And because I truly believe this, and maybe some people disagree with this because I know I still find it hilarious that there's like a, play Steve Angeli over Riley Leonard stuff in chats sometimes. It's pretty hilarious. But
I got to think those people aren't serious. Like I have to tell myself that so I can feel better about humanity. That's what I have to do, Ryan.
I unfortunately, I think that you're probably incorrect with that assumption. I believe, unfortunately.
let me live in my world over here of naivete that tells me that people can't be that just off.
I think they are, unfortunately, but I do believe that Notre Dame to hopefully go undefeated or not very close or make a deep playoff run, which I think they're very capable of. They are only going to go as far as Riley Leonard can take them. I mean, he is get out of jail free card as an athlete. Everyone saw it against Texas A&M, right? He's one of those guys, and people heard me talk about this in nauseum over the last couple of years. You need players that can make right out of wrong sometimes. And there were some plays that had no business being a big play or being a sound play, and Riley Leonard's athleticism was able to save you last week. Now we need to see that happen in the passing game because Riley has all the talents to be a very good passer on this level. You saw flashes of it. It's there. I mean, at Duke, it was there a lot. At Notre Dame week 1, you saw the flashes, but it was inconsistent. Now, I expected some inconsistency early, right? Like I did. I mean, you have a brand new wide receiver room, kind of. I mean, at least from some of your depth, especially. But Bo Collins, Chris Mitchell, Jaden Harrison, who played a little bit in the first half. Like you have a new group, and then you have a new quarterback, and you have a new offensive coordinator. Like there was always going to be some things that had to be ironed out that wasn't going to be super sharp. Now this week, you need to start to figure that stuff out. He talked about his confidence in Bo Collins at the end there, right? Like he knew he could throw it up and he would make a play. Well, I need to see that translate to the next week now, right? And then Jaden Greathouse has a big catch on that game-winning drive. Need to see him start to get going a little bit. Chris Mitchell he only had a couple opportunities in that football game in general and only one catch for 10 yards. So getting those guys involved and making this a more well-balanced attack is the key for this game. That's the stepping stone that you need to have because, again, getting Riley Leonard comfortable, getting this passing game comfortable, because the run game is going to be great, I think. I think that has potential to be a big-time running game, but we have seen in the big game, we have seen in some games the last couple of years, because Notre Dame's had a pretty good run game in recent years, is that there's going to be a game where it's not working, guys. It's just not working. It just isn't. Louisville last year was that to a degree. I know they went away from it for Clemson, but like either way, there's going to be a game where you're just not efficiently running the football because they're stacking the box. Need the passing game to get open, get going here. You need Riley Leonard to take a step forward. You need these weapons to make plays for him when the ball is in the spot.
Running game put up 198 yards last week against Texas A&M. Did not have that in my prediction sheet, and it feasted on big runs. Ryan, I had Notre Dame in my breakdown. I actually added the play where there was the hold on Ashton Craig, and I had them at 207 yards, 204 yards in the game, just pure runs, not scrambles, just pure runs, at 7 yards of play. And so the raw numbers were excellent. However, my efficiency number was 37%. 60 is a good game. They were at 37%. That's really where number 3 is for me, is I want to see more consistency in the run game. Now, part of that was your young offensive line, but let's be real. Part of that was also Texas A&M has a really good front, and they played well. And I thought Notre Dame had to earn all their yards. But I do want to see more efficiency, because if this offense can combine efficiency and explosiveness in both the run and pass game, then they're going to be a really, really dangerous offense. So just want to see some of the mistakes that they had last week get corrected early. I want to see some of the minuses negated, the run-throughs negated, where you've got a guy crashing off the edge and tackling your running back as soon as he gets the ball. I want to see those things negated. But you know what I will say, Ryan? I didn't talk about this in my breakdown, but I want to give some props to Joe Rudolph for this, because early in the game, one of the reasons they were having in the run game is they were doing a very poor job with their angles on down blocks. And they were taking a really level angle, which was letting the A&M guys really easily destruct and get over top and blow the play up. Late in the game, they did a much better job of working towards that upfield shoulder, and they were then allowed to kind of keep those holes open. So good job making those in-game adjustments. That was one of the best in-game adjustment situations that Notre Dame's had on offense in a long time against a quality opponent. But I want to see that also now carry into this week, where you do have a little bit more efficiency. Turn -2s into +4s, turn some of those +3s into +8s. I want to see a little bit more of that. You and I know they can hit home runs, Ryan. And we didn't even see Riley hit a home run last week. He will, right? Yeah. Maybe this week. Who knows? But he will. He's done it before. We know they can be home run hitters. Now let's see that they can do the little things. And it's not so much the backs that I'm worried about. It's the line giving them the opportunities to maximize some of those carries.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a marriage a little bit, because like the offensive line, just naturally, when you're talking about a team that only had 6 career starts in a 5-man unit, there's going to be some just natural communication errors. There's going to be, they're not cohesively moving together. There's just
Right.
kind of a
Get off a
questioning
double
of one
team too
another.
early. Right.
I will say, to be fair to them, though, that I do think there were a couple misreads by Love and Price. Like, I don't think that they made it
First inside
easy.
zone to Love.
Yeah.
If he cuts that back, they had a really good hard press to the front side. If he cuts that back, he
Yep.
might have housed it.
Even there was one QB power, I think, or maybe it was just a sweep. I can't remember what it was, but there was a play where Riley Leonard was out in space, and I think Riley was just kind of working to the sideline a little bit too fast. And if he just kind of stays patient, I think he cuts off a Billy Stroud's butt, and he might have another 5-10 yards potentially. Like, it's that type of play. So I think that all around, we're just talking about one more cohesiveness up front. You're talking about offensive running backs and quarterbacks involved in the run game, being a little bit more patient and trusting the guys that are in front of you. And then that naturally will just kind of take over, because I don't think we saw all the run looks that we're going to see at Notre Dame either. Like, I guarantee we're going to see some jet stuff at times. I guarantee we're going to see some outside zone at times, not like just the pulling stuff that we saw, like the pin and pull stuff. So I think that we saw a taste of it, but it can definitely get better. There's no doubt. It was very feast or famine is kind of how I would kind of quantify it last year. You weren't efficient in the short areas of the running game, but you were able to break some home runs that kind of balloon the stats a little bit. And naturally, I think with who Love and Price are, I do think that that's going to be a little bit of what you are, but it could definitely be more efficient. There's no doubt. But you are going to be a little bit more feast and famine compared to Estime, because Estime was a bulldozer. He's just a little bit more of an efficient runner.
Right. Also, I want to see more success on first down running the football, Ryan. Their first down efficiency numbers were also not good. Now, they had some big runs on first and second down, but I just need to see a little bit more efficiency on that. That's going to do it for the offensive side. We're going to get over the defensive side next, folks. But before we do, do me a favor, hit that like button. Make sure you guys have liked this show. Make sure you're subscribed, and make sure that you have the notification bells on, because when we go live, they're going to let you know about it. And you can always check out what we're doing here at irishbreakdown.com.